back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and today I'm going to be showing off some cards that I think should be reprinted. These are all cards that I think if they were reprinted right now, they would improve the format a lot. These are cards that maybe could be reprinted within Paradox Rift. You never know. It's too early to tell, but I am hoping that we can maybe see some of these cards be reprinted sometime in the future, as I think that would make the game a lot more healthier and would improve the format by quite a bit. So I'm excited to show off the cards here. Let me know in the comments below if there's any card you would like to personally see get reprinted that maybe I didn't include on this list. This isn't going to be a top 5, top 10 video. It's no ranking in any order. I'm just going to be talking about each individual card that I think should be reprinted. Not really in any order. And if you are new to the second channel here, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. Help me on the road to reaching 8,000 subs and all that good stuff. Check out card comment down below and the Mental Might podcast and all that good stuff. And without further ado, let's take a look at some cards that I think should get reprinted. The first card I would like to see be reprinted is Shrine of Punishment. This is one of the first cards that came to mind when I was thinking of making this video, and I would love to see this card come back. Now, if they were to make Shrine of Punishment a thing again, it would have to say between turns, put 1 damage counter on each rule box Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, because obviously we don't have GXs and uppercase EXs anymore. So Shrine of Punishment would be a really nice card to have in the format. It's a great card that really did help single prize decks out quite a bit in the meta where GXs were super dominant and popular. It's just a nice way to kind of have those single price decks have a little bit extra firepower in those matchups. And with the amount of HP that we're at right now, especially when they're printing Pokemon with 330 plus HP and they're really hard to two-shot for a lot of different decks, I think having Shrine would help balance those cards out quite a bit. And there's enough good stadiums in the meta with like Artisan, Beach Court, Pokestop, Path to the Peak, the list goes on. There's enough good stadiums in the meta where I think Shrine would have some pretty thick competition. So I personally would like to see Shrine of Punishment come back. Again, being able to put 1 damage counter on each rule box Pokemon in between turns would honestly be really good, because obviously it also damages your own board too. So it's not like a card that's going to make your board broken. It's going to affect your own board. If you have like an Arceus or a Pidgeot in play, obviously it will affect you too. But I really think this card would do a lot to help the game. The only downside I could see this card bringing to the game is that it would be very good with Sableye. But even then, Lost Box already has enough good stadiums that they play. I mean, they already have Pokestop and Artisan, so already, you know, Lost Box would already have good stadiums that they could also run. So there's a reason that maybe that Shrine wouldn't be that broken in Lost Box. That's like the only negative I can think of with Shrine of Punishment. It would maybe be a little good in Lost Box, but it'd be a great stadium to have in the format. I would love to see Shrine come back in some way, shape, or form, because I think it would be a great stadium, and I think it might honestly be my favorite card that should be reprinted within the format. Next up is Garbadour. Now, Garbadour Trash Lance is a very infamous card that used to be really, really good back in the day when it came out in Guardians Rising, all the way back in 2017. We're now in 2023, and Trash Lance would still be a very strong attack. Now, Trash Lance wouldn't be, like, extremely broken, because there are a lot of items, but I do think that it's a great balance to have an attack like this in the game. I mean, you got to think of all the items in the meta right now, right? You got Switch, Rare Candy, Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Electric Generator. There's a lot of item cards that would make Trash Lance good, and maybe they would even buff Trash Lance, where it would maybe even be doing, like, even more damage than, like, maybe 30 times or something, but I really think that Trash Lance should come back in the meta. Whether or not they obviously reprint Garbadour, or they put this on, like, an EX or something, I would love to see Trash Lance come back into the format. It's just a nice attack to have, and with all the items running loose right now, it honestly would be pretty good to have Trash Lance within the game. I think a lot of people might agree with me on this. I've seen people on Twitter even talk about the idea of bringing this card back in our format, and I think it'd be a great way to balance the meta, because Garbadour did come out in a meta where we were kind of in a similar meta where back in the day when we had evolving GX Stage 2 Pokemon, Garbadour was pretty relevant, and we're now in a similar format where we have these evolving 2-prize Pokemon with Rare Candy, and Garbadour coming back, it would make sense, right? Because it kind of fit the early Sun and Moon era, and it could fit the early Scarlet and Violet era. So Garbadour Trash Lance would be a nice card, but that's not the only Garbadour card that should come back. I think Garbotoxin would be a great card to also bring back. Now, this card is an infamously powerful card, and I think it has one of the best abilities we've ever seen within the TCG, where if this Pokemon has a Pokemon Tool card attached to it, each Pokemon in play have no abilities, well, obviously in player's hand and discard, but the main point is you shut off abilities with Garbotoxin when you have a tool on. Now, you can't make the argument this card would be too good when we have Lost Vacuum in the format, because every time we've seen Garbadour, we've seen Garbotoxin twice in the format. We've always had either Tool Scrapper, we've had Field Blower, and now we have Lost Vacuum, which is arguably even stronger than Field Blower because it also puts cards in the Lost Zone. So I think that Garbotoxin would be a great ability to reprint within the TCG. I mean, we already have Iono back. I mean, Garbadour N used to be a very infamous combo, and now that we have Iono in the format, Iono Garbadour would also be a pretty infamous combo that I think would be really good. I personally would like to see Garbadour come back. This one maybe is a bit more controversial compared to Trash Lance Garbadour, but Garbadour is great. I mean, the thing is, ability lock is always a good thing to have, in my opinion. Path to Peak is one of the best cards in the game right now for a reason. I think ability lock is extremely important to have within the TCG. Now, I think if they were to reprint Garbadour, maybe they should rotate out Path to the Peak first, so that this way, you know, we wouldn't have both Path and Garbadour in the format, which would make things a little complicated in terms of, you know, broken cards. But I definitely think that Garbadour coming back would be healthy for the game. And I think it should be reprinted, because again, as long as we have like Lost Vacuum in the meta, you can't make the argument that this would be too broken. Because as long as there's a way to remove tools, it's not that big of a deal. And maybe they'll even print some kind of good tool card that would make Garbadour a little bit worse, but I do think that Garbadour should come back. It's healthy for the game, and showing off a wide variety of abilities like Baxcalibur, Comfy, Radiant Greninja, I think would be healthy for the game, and I would like to see Garbadour come back. That's another big card that I think would improve the game if they were to reprint this card. Now, this isn't the only Guardians Rising card on this list. I want to talk about Machoke and why this card would be a savior for the format in a lot of ways. So its ability is very similar to Manaphy, where you can prevent all damage on your bench Pokemon. But not only can you do that, you also prevent damage counters being placed on your bench Pokemon too. So this card is basically a way to prevent Sableye from affecting your bench. It's like Manaphy and Espeon Toedscruel all-in-one ability. Now, you would argue, well, that might be a little too good. Not really. I think Machoke would be a welcome addition to the format. I mean, there's a reason why Sableye is such a problematic card for the game. I know a lot of people really do not like Sableye, me included. I mean, so many people despise Sableye. Sableye is a very broken, very powerful card, and I think we do need some kind of decent check for Sableye, because Toedscruel and Espeon are just not it. When Path to Peak exists, when we also have, you know, Drapion Mirage Gate to just destroy the Espeon, it's just not good enough. I think that Machoke would be the more fair balance. Now, the nice thing about Machoke is that it's not the, you know, gonna make Sableye unplayable, because it is a stage 1 at the end of the day. You have to get the Machop down first. If they were to reprint Machoke and put it on a stage 1, whatever, you know, stage 1 they choose, you know, Graveler, Machoke, whatever, it would make sense because it's not as broken, because you still have to evolve a Machop, so your opponent, you know, playing Sableye would still have a turn to try to knock out the Machop before you evolve it into a Machoke. But I think Machoke would be very healthy for the game. It would honestly save single prize decks quite a bit, because that's the issue with single prize decks right now. They just kind of suck when Sableye gatekeeps them. Like, I would love to play Zorobox to a tournament. I would love to play United Wings to a tournament, but I can't when Giratina and Turbo Lost Box both exist, both run rampant, and both abuse Sableye, and it just makes it really hard for single price decks to succeed. So I think Machoke would be very healthy for the game. Preventing Sableye would be nice. Now, obviously, it does say abilities can't put damage, so it would hard check like Meowscarada and Inteleon, but you can just make it so that Machoke just prevents effects of attacks done to your bench instead of abilities, so that your opponent could still play Inteleon and Meowscarada without completely gatekeeping those either. Because I really think that we should just have a way to prevent effects done to your bench by attacks. You don't need to stop abilities. So if they were to reprint Machoke, I would say just make it so that it prevents all damage and effects of attacks, not abilities. So this way, you know, you could still, you know, get Sableye, or you could still get Inteleon VMAXed, or you could still get Meowscarada, but you just can't get Lost Minded anymore, which would be very good, because Lost Mind is toxic and not healthy for the game whatsoever, and Machoke would be a fantastic card to reprint in the format. Next up is Silver Bangle. Now, this is, once again, another card that would greatly improve single prize decks. You can tell this list really does include a lot of ways to let single prizers shine. Because, like, when Pokemon are printing these massive 330 HP monster Pokemon that are really hard to one-hit KO / two-hit KO, and when you have Sableye in the format, which is also ruining the format for single prizers, I think we need to see good single prize cards come back in the meta. Silver Bangle would be a great inclusion to have in the format. The attacks of this Pokemon this card is attached to, excluding Pokemon EX, do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX. Now, the nice thing about Silver Bangle is that you could just errata it, where the attacks of this Pokemon, excluding a Rule Box Pokemon, do 30 more damage to active Rule Box Pokemon. So your non-Rule Box Pokemon would do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Rule Box Pokemon. That's basically what you would make Silver Bangle do. So all of a sudden, your, I don't know, I guess Cramorant, for an example, would do 140 damage to Charizard EX all of a sudden. And that's why I think Silver Bangle is healthy for the game, because it's a great card that would make one prize decks really good. And I mean, I guess, you could make the argument Lost Box could abuse this, but even I don't think Lost Box would. I mean, the only good card this would be good with is probably just Cramorant. I mean, you can't use Silver Bangle with Sableye. It'd be ridiculous. So this card would be great for single prize decks. We do have Defiance Band and all the gloves in the format, and Choice Belt. The problem is Choice Belt's only on V Pokemon, which is good, but now that we have more and more EXs coming out that have, again, 330, 340 plus HP, these one-price Pokemon are starting to get a little bit out of range of being able to KO these Pokemon consistently. And, well, again, we do have the gloves. There isn't really a general card in the meta that lets you just hit any EXs. When you have to play Cleansing Gloves hit Gardevoir, and all of a sudden you run into Charizard, oh, I wish I had Justified Gloves instead. You know what I mean? So I think a card like Silver Bangle would improve the game quite a bit. I mean, it doesn't even have to be plus 30. You can even just make it do plus 20 more damage to Rule Box Pokemon on non-Rule Boxers. But I definitely think a card like Silver Bangle would help the game quite a bit. It would make single prizers a little bit better. So I personally would like to see Silver Bangle be reprinted. Now let's talk about some Pokemon Search. Now, I don't think Quick Ball or even Evolution Incense or even Timer Ball for that matter will get reprinted. I mean, those cards would be a little too good right now, especially Evolution Incense. You know what would be nice to have in the game though? Pokemon Communication. This is, in my opinion, one of the most well-designed Pokemon Search cards we have ever seen. It's not as broken as Quick Ball. It's not as simplistic and, straightforward as Evolution Incense. It's not as grotesque as Ultra Ball. It's just very straightforward. You just reveal a Pokemon from your hand. If you do, put it back in your deck, and then search your deck for another Pokemon instead. So you basically just swap Pokemon from your hand, and it's a great card to have. And we're in a meta now where evolution Pokemon are starting to become more and more popular, and the only way to really find them is with Capturing Aroma, which sucks, Mesagoza, which sucks, and Ultra Ball, which is pretty good, obviously, but Ultra Ball, you can only play 4 of in your deck, so you're limited to how you can search your Pokemon. Well, we have to see cards like Arceus V-Star play within these Stage 2 decks just to find a rare candy evolution pieces. You got a bit of a problem. That's why I think Pokemon Communication would be a very healthy card to have back in the game. Pokecom has always been a very cool card to see in the meta, and the nice thing when playing Pokecom, you want to at least, I think the minimum was like 16 to 17 Pokemon within your deck to get good value out of this card, but I think Pokecom would be awesome to have back in the game. Like, I don't think they should reprint Evolution Incense because that'd be a little too on the nose, but I think Pokecom would be a great middle ground between good Pokemon Search, but not, too overly simple like, Evolution Incense would be. So Pokecom would be a great reprint to have. It's a really healthy card for the game. It's universal Pokemon Search. Maybe you can make it where it doesn't find, EX Pokemon, I guess. I don't know. Maybe try to balance it a little bit, but I think it'd be fine just how it is, right? Just get any Pokemon out of your deck if you swap a Pokemon from your hand. So, really cool card that I would love to see be reprinted. Because, again, the only real good way to find evolutions right now is really just Ultra Ball. And having to play Arceus just the Search and Evolution Rare Candy combo is a little ridiculous. So maybe Pokecom would help fix that solution and fix that problem where we have to use Arceus to find rare candy pieces and evolution pieces. So, I don't know. Pokecom would be a really cool card to come back. It's a nice Pokemon Search card that I think would be pretty healthy for the game. I did want to briefly mention Big Paracel because I just mentioned Machoke, but if we're not going to get Machoke reprinted, at least give us back a Big Paracel. Big Paracel obviously is not the greatest anti-Sableye card when Escape Rope exists, when Lost Vacuum exists, but a card like this wouldn't be bad to have in the game in general, just having that extra bit of Sableye protection. It's always nice to have, and now that Giratina V-Star is like a super popular deck now, honestly, it wouldn't hurt to just have a Big Paracel like in the format. Like, I don't know, I'm going to keep this kind of brief, but I wouldn't mind if Big Paracel got reprinted. Right? It's not the greatest counter when Lost Vacuum exists, but it is nice to have. I mean, there's a reason why nobody's going to play Toadcruel or Espeon right now in their decks because, they kind of don't do anything against Giratina when they can just play Path. And obviously, Giratina would just start playing Lost Vacuum at Big Paracel style play, but I really do think Big Paracel would be a nice addition to have back in the meta, and I wanted to briefly mention Big Paracel. This one's a little bit more of a fun pick, but I've decided that, hey, Victini should come back in the format, or Glimwood Tangle. But Victini, I would like to see a little bit more than Glimwood Tangle, but Victini does have the ability where once you're in turn, after you flip any coins for an attack, you can ignore the results of those and then reflip the effect, but you can't use more than one Victory Star ability a turn. So essentially, if you're attacking with Radiant Jirachi and you have a Victini in your bench and then Jirachi gets, one tails, one heads, it's like, oh, I want to try to get the double heads. I have a Victini in play. All right, it's going to let me reflip Jirachi's attack. I think Victini would just be a fun card. There's a lot of really cool, fun coin flip Pokemon in the format, like Wug Trio, Radiant Jirachi, and these cards just kind of suck right now because there's really no way to reflip the effects. I just personally like having reflip effects in the game. I think they're fun to have in the format. They haven't really printed any like broken coin flip attacks in a long time, and I don't think there's any coin flip attacks in the format right now that would be problematic. So I don't really see a reason why we shouldn't just get Glimwood Tangle / Victini back in the format. I mean, they could even print Trick Coin, which was a tool version of Victini and Glimwood Tangle. I don't know. A coin flip, reflip effect would be nice to have back in the format. There's a lot of really fun effects you can do with it, and as a content creator, it makes for some pretty cool content ideas. Just saying, it's a bit more of a biased opinion, but I just would love to see a reflip card come back in the format, whether it be Victini, which I personally would think would be the best option, but Glimwood Tangle / Trick Coin, I guess, wouldn't be terrible either. Next up is Memory Capsule. This one's another odd one that you might be like, why is Memory Capsule on here? Well, Memory Capsule is a very cool card that we never really got to see much shine. I mean, yeah, it did see a bit of shine because it saw play within like Jolteon and Gyarados VMAX, but outside of that, Memory Capsule just never really went anywhere. And as we now are getting evolutions to be very prominent within the format, it would be kind of cool to have Memory Capsule back in the format. I mean, I can't think of any like problematic, broken, stage 2s right now, stage 1 Pokemon that would abuse Memory Capsule. It's just a card that I feel like maybe they should just reprint. If they're printing all these big, powerful EX stage 1, stage 2 Pokemon, and evolutions are finally becoming meta again, it feels like a waste opportunity not to give us, like, Memory Capsule again. I mean, again, there's nothing broken I can think of, but it would be cool to see a card like Memory Capsule back in the format. I mean, again, I can't think of anything broken it would be good with, but, again, if evolutions are coming back in the meta, why not give us back Memory Capsule? I'm going to keep it kind of short because, again, it's just kind of a simplistic pick, but it would be cool to see this back in the format in some way, shape, or form. I would probably prefer to be on a tool. There was a Shining Celebi from Shining Legends that was like Victini, where it was an ability while it's on your bench. It lets you copy the attacks, and there's also a Stadium card that did the exact same thing, but I think having it as a tool would be a little bit more balanced. I don't think you need to make it where, like, you can copy as an ability. I think as a tool card would be a little bit more balanced, but I don't know. Memory Capsule would be cool to have in the meta. I mean, why not reprint it, right? Next up, I have Tag Team Supporters. Now, this is a little bit of an oddball pick, because Tag Team Supporters are kind of, like, specific to, like, Tag Team era TCG. If they were to bring back the Tag Team Supporter engine, it wouldn't really make any sense, because it's like, well, you already, Tag Teams don't exist anymore. And don't reprint Tag Teams. Please, don't do it. Don't do it. I do not want to deal with ADP, Pikarom, Mewtwo, Mew ever again. Don't reprint Tag Team Pokemon. Reprint Tag Team Supporters. They were a lot more healthier and more better, well-designed cards. Now, they don't have to be the exact same thing. I mean, I guess they could be similar. We have Guzma and Malalana I picked out. I mean, there's also, like, Caitlyn Cynthia and stuff. But, I don't know, Tag Team Supporters are really cool to have in the game. I mean, imagine having Malalana in the format right now, being able to heal 120 damage and switch a Pokemon. It could be kind of cool. I mean, it would be good with all these super bulky Pokemon, obviously, but would it be a terrible card to have? If Cheryl rotates, having a card like Malalana in the game wouldn't be terrible. I mean, you don't have to reprint the Tag Team engine, but you could honestly just reprint the effect of these Tag Team Supporters, like Malalana, like a Guzma, where you can discard 2 cards from your hand, and then you can also search deck for a tool, a special energy, and a stadium card. So grabbing all those things at once would be pretty cool. I mean, yeah, they'd be, really powerful, and maybe if they are reprinting A-Specs and A-Specs get supporters, which I don't think will happen. I think they're keeping A-Specs items only, but just in case, I mean, maybe they could be A-Spec cards. I don't know. Tag Team Supporters would be kind of cool to bring back. I personally like Tag Team Supporters. I didn't like Tag Team Pokemon. I thought they sucked and were bad for the game, but Tag Team Supporters, a lot more healthier and a lot more cooler for the game, and they opened up for some pretty interesting combinations. I don't know if Caitlyn Cynthia should come back. Caitlyn Cynthia obviously is another Tag Team Supporter that was very, very good, that if they were to reprint the effects of these, then maybe bring back Caitlyn Cynthia. But yeah, Tag Team Supporters would be a cool engine to bring back. I mean, the problem is you bring them back, you can't bring back Tag Team Pokemon because, again, they would be bad for the game, but maybe you could, like, rename them or something like that. It's an option. Just wanted to point that out. Next up is Air Balloon. Now, Retreat Pivot cards are always cards that I like personally having within the format, and I don't think they should bring back Floatstone. In fact, I think a lot of people are speculating that Floatstone is going to be printed as an A-Spec card when A-Specs do return next year. They announced A-Specs are coming back, and Air Balloon / Floatstone might be an A-Spec card. But I would just like to see a Retreat Tool Pivot card come back. Again, a personal preference of mine, I always like having these cards within the format. I think they make the game pretty healthy to have in the meta, and I think bringing one of them back would be pretty nice to have. I mean, yeah, obviously the argument would be, well, Comfy would abuse them, but that's fine. I mean, Comfy abusing Air Balloon wouldn't be a big deal. Again, with Lost Vacuum in the meta, they're not going to be, like, super broken and overpowered. And they're just nice to have Retreat Pivot cards in the meta. They've always made the game pretty healthy, and I think they're just always nice to have around. I mean, with the popularity of Mew right now, especially with Mew in the format when we obviously, need it to help find rare candies and battle VIP passes, set up your board, having something like Air Balloon in the meta wouldn't be too bad. So I wouldn't mind if they reprinted Air Balloon again, or, something like U-Turn Board or Escape Board maybe. But I think Air Balloon would be a good middle ground, obviously. I think it's the most well-designed Retreat Pivot card, because I think Floatstone was a little too good, and I mean, hey, if they bring back Garbadour and Garbadour, there you go, having Air Balloon back could be good, or maybe if they do make Flowstone Ace-Spec, there you go, boom, Garbadour, Flowstone Ace-Spec, just kind of natural partners there. But that's it for the video. Those are all the cards that I think should come back. I mean, there's other cards that maybe I could have listed that I maybe didn't think of, but let me know in the comments below if there's any cards you think should come back within the standard format anytime soon. And let me know what you think of the cards that I mentioned on this video. I think they would help the game greatly. I think they would improve the format by a lot, and they'd make the game a lot more playable and a lot more fun, and they would make for some, better interactions and would let other type of cards shine when obviously other cards like Sableye are gatekeeping them from ever being very good. But that'll be for me. If you all enjoyed the video here on the second channel, leave a like, and yeah, once again, subscribe down below if you have not subscribed already. Check out the podcast down below. Check out the Shuffle Squad, the main channel, I guess, and Card Cabin. If you get any codes, use code LDF. All right, hope you all enjoyed the video, and yeah, once again, let me know what you think of the list down below, and I'll catch you on another video on the second channel. Bye-bye.